Hi, welcome to ArtC. I'm your host, Bill Horin. Today's show will be a little different. We will be traveling the world with three of South Jersey's best photographers. And I don't know about you, but I'm ready for a little getaway. Our first guest today is photographer Patricia Worley. Pat is the owner of Twilight Blue Photography and a former executive director of the Medford Art Center. Pat, welcome to ArtC.
Oh, thank you, Bill. Thank you for having me.
So besides Twilight Blue Photography, you also own Twilight Blue Photography workshops. Can you tell us a little bit about your workshops?
Our workshops are destination travel photography workshops. And we'll take small groups anywhere between 4 and 10 people to various destinations across the United States to the national parks. We've gone to Acadia National Park, and we like to go back to the Grand Teton and Yellowstone over and over again. And we also have a new workshop that was actually scheduled for May this month. In fact, I would be packing my bags and heading out right now. But because of COVID, we have postponed it until 2021, and that's to South Africa and Madagascar.
When did you first realize you had the travel bug?
In 2010, I had a friend who led trips to China, and they were leading a photography workshop. It was their first photography workshop. It was my 50th birthday, and I said, that's what I want to do for my birthday. And so I went. And it was my birthday for 1 year, Christmas, and it kept going on and on.
Where are some of the other places you've traveled to and photographed?
Oh, golly, I've been to 5 continents, and I believe 48 countries. And I've been to Africa a couple of times now. I've only been twice, but I've been there over 2.5 months. Each time I go, it's for an extended period of time. I'm going into Europe. We just came back from Iceland on a trip with the family and to the on a cruise with the Baltic Sea, and we went into St. Petersburg, Russia, which was very exciting for me.
Let's talk about what you've chosen to share with us today. Tell us why and what you've chosen.
Yellowstone. If you haven't been to Yellowstone in the winter, you're really missing out. It's a entirely new experience, whether you're a photographer or just, someone who enjoys traveling and seeing wildlife. I enjoy going as a photographer, first and foremost because of the animals. They're very interesting. They always seem to be doing something a little bit different. We have the ermine, whose coat changes from a brown color to white, and it becomes the winter white coloration that we see on the wildlife channels. And the animals are behaving in different ways. What is also very nice about traveling in the wintertime is that there aren't very many people there. Really, the only people you see are other photographers. And it's nice because you develop a nice camaraderie with the folks that you meet and you share information. And it also makes for very clean backgrounds because you have a white snow as a background.
Pat, you've got me wanting to pack a bag right now, and obviously I can't. But I want to thank you for being on the show today.
Thank you so much. I always enjoy seeing your shows and being here and talking to you.
My second guest is portrait and commercial photographer Holly Horner. But Holly's true passion is travel, and boy, has she traveled. Holly, welcome to ArtC.
Thanks, Bill. Thanks for having me.
Tell me how you first got the travel bug. I know there's a story behind that.
Actually, I had the travel bug, I think, all my life. My father had us kids as the great explorers, and he was always taking us someplace out in the woods, and so we've been exploring all our lives. I've had a camera in my hand since I was 5.
You've traveled to so many places, but give us a little background on some of the places you've been to.
I spent a lot of time in South Africa. I actually went back a few times. I met somebody there. I was taking care of lions and tigers and cheetahs. And I met this guy there who lived in Australia, and we became quite close. And so he wanted me to meet his wife. I wanted him to meet my husband. So I ended up in Australia and New Zealand for another couple months. Galapagos, you know, just all over United States. I think I've covered all the states in the United States. And I don't know, the list goes on and on.
You've also been to the North Pole, to the Antarctic, you've been to Alaska, you've been to quite a few other places besides Africa.
Well, not Antarctica, it was the Arctic.
The Arctic.
Yes, to do the polar bears. The polar bears they're going to be becoming extinct, I believe. They're starting to mess around with the grizzlies and the brown bears. And so we don't think that the polar bears will be here forever because of global warming. So I do try to get the majority of animals that I can that are mainly on the extinction list because I want to get them before they're gone.
Well, you've chosen a destination to share with us today. Why that destination, and what is your destination?
My destination is Africa. I love Africa. I've loved Africa all my life, as far as I can remember. Born Free and Jungle Book were two of my favorite movies. And I love the wildlife. I love to see new things, the indigenous people. The wildlife especially has piqued my interest, I think, all my life. We went to Africa and we rented a bush camper. And so we had a 4-wheel drive so we could go to the places that I needed to go to get the images that I wanted to get. So we went there and we started in Egypt. And then from Egypt, we flew down to South Africa. And then we just did 2 months, just the two of us in a bush camper. We would go to a lot of their parks, they're nothing like our parks here. They're huge and they're just full of wildlife, and hopefully it stays that way. The people there, they live off of the wildlife as well. So there is, you know, a lot of poaching going on for the ivory and the elephants. So we're trying to discourage buying anything with ivory. There's lions that I went and took care of at a wildlife conservation reserve because they're trying to do research on what the white gene is in the white lions from the brown lions. And the lions as well are also endangered. There's a lot of endangered wildlife there, and I'm there to see what I can do and to photograph it and bring it back here to share with the people here that never get these opportunities.
Holly, I got to thank you for sharing your experiences in Africa, and I want to thank you for being on the show today.
Bill, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Our third photographer today is Steve Schneiderman, the owner of Schneiderman Photographics. And Steve was a master of the multiple print even before Photoshop. And many of his travel photos do include multiple printing and Photoshop now. Steve, welcome to ArtC.
Thank you for that. I'm glad to be here.
You've been to a lot of locations, mostly in the United States. And when you take a picture, you do use a lot of multiple imaging, even in your travel. Do you see the image as a multiple image when you do it, or does that come in post-production?
Sometimes I feel that I'll take a picture because I know I'm going to put it together with something. But in most cases, I try to make the picture as perfect as I can. I compose it in the viewfinder and try and get it as perfect as I can. Then later on, I'll analyze what I have and decide what I'm going to do with it.
You've done a lot of traveling in the United States. What are some of the places you've been to?
I've been to Utah. I like Utah the best, actually, but I've been all through the West. Been in California, been in Yellowstone, been in Canadian Rockies, and in Maine. But what I've been doing lately mostly is Florida, because every winter we go down for 2 or 3 months, and it gives me a chance to explore that area.
That's what you're going to share with us today, is some of the photos you've done in Florida, specifically Tampa Bay and St. Petersburg, I believe. So tell us a little bit about those images.
I like to go to a zoo because it's a captive audience, and there's no way that I could ever get any chance to photograph these animals other than at the zoo. But because I'm using multiple imaging, I can create different environments that they be in, and look for compositions with the animals. So that's my pleasure right now.
So what are some of your favorite subjects when you do that?
I've been photographing the orangutans, and they are so human-like, and they have so much expression that it's a pleasure to photograph them.
So tell us a little bit about your technique. How do you photograph them? What do you use for a camera and for a lens usually?
I'm using the Sony, the latest model of Sony, or almost the latest model. I guess they've made one since I've got mine. But the newest thing that I have is the 100 to 400 lens. And with that lens, it's the sharpest lens that I've ever used. And it's amazing. I have some images that other people cannot believe how sharp the images are, even when cropped down. I've been using Sony since Sony introduced into cameras. And I've had about 5 or 6 different Sonys and worked my way up.
I've got to say, you're the one that introduced me to Sony, and when you first did, I was a Canon believer all the way. I said, there's no way I'm going to switch to Sony, and now I'm a Sony user also. That's what we use for our videos and for my photography, and I love the camera. What are some of the other things that you look for? What makes a good subject to you, besides orangutans? What to you makes a good subject?
Been photographing birds and isolating the birds from their environment and putting them into branches, which has been working out good for me. I feel that photography is a license to explore, and this gives me a reason to actually travel. Every time that I go out on an outing, I always do it mostly because of photography. And I think that if I didn't have the photography, I probably wouldn't travel as much as I do.
When you come back with your images, and I know you shoot a lot of images when you're on a trip, what do you do in the post-production process? How does that start for you?
Actually, while I'm away, because the laptop that I have is almost as powerful as my desktop, I'm almost imaging in real time. So every night I'm taking these images and putting them together. Most of the time I'm shooting panoramics, 2 or 3 or 4 images, and merging them together to make one image, because I can always pick 1 or 2 of that section and make a composition out of it.
So you're really well known for your surreal images. I mean, putting images together that normally would not ever go together. Are you still doing much surreal imaging?
Very rarely do I have an image that I don't do something to it. I'm always isolating pieces and parts and putting them together. I photographed a tiger one time, and I put him in resting in a swimming pool. Just things like that. So I always do things to images. I don't just leave them stay by themselves.
Steve, I want to thank you for sharing with us today. This has been ArtC. I'm Bill Horin. Thanks for watching.